Our first reading is from the Book of Ruth, chapter 3, verses 1 through to 7. Ruth and Boaz at the threshing floor. One day, Ruth's mother-in-law Naomi said to her, "My daughter, I must find a home for you, where you will be well provided for. Now Boaz, with whose women you have worked, is a relative of ours. Tonight he will be winnowing barley on the threshing floor. Wash, put on perfume, and get dressed in your best clothes. Then go down to the threshing floor. But don't let him know you are there until he has finished eating and drinking. When he lies down, note the place where he is lying. Then go and uncover his feet and lie down. He will tell you what to do." "I'll do whatever you say," Ruth answered. So she went down to the threshing floor and did everything her mother-in-law told her to do. When Boaz had finished eating and drinking and was in good spirits, he went over to lie down at the far end of the grain pile. Ruth approached quietly, uncovered his feet, and lay down.
Thank you very much, Wayne. It's almost like a bit of a cliffhanger in our story, and we are going to come back for the rest of Ruth chapter 3. We're going to sing two more songs. Before we do that, I'd just like to think a little bit. This story of Ruth and the chapter that we are going to read this morning starts to think about Boaz as the redeemer. And you might have heard that phrase, kinsman redeemer or family redeemer. And it just got me thinking about how we are redeemed. And when it was the first song that we sang together, it tells that story of how we have been redeemed. And I'd just like to read a few verses as we think about this theme of redemption, really. And the first one is in Galatians 3. And Galatians 3:13, it says, "Christ redeemed us from the curse of the law by becoming a curse for us. For it is written, 'Cursed is everyone who is hung on a pole.' He redeemed us in order that the blessing given to Abraham might come to the Gentiles through Christ Jesus, so that by faith we might receive the promise of the Spirit." And in the Old Testament, if we go to Isaiah chapter 44, because we're going to read from verse 22. And God says to us, to his people, verse 22 of Isaiah 44, "I have swept away your offences like a cloud, your sins like the morning mist. Return to me, for I have redeemed you. Sing for joy, you heavens, for the Lord has done this. Shout aloud, you earth beneath. Burst into song, you mountains, you forests and all your trees, for the Lord has redeemed Jacob. He displays his glory in Israel." Amazing verses about redemption. One of the songs that we're going to sing says, "Up from the ashes, hope will arise." And that's what redemption is all about. Boaz was that glimmer of hope in Ruth and Naomi's lives, and we have a glowing glimmer of hope because of what Jesus has done and is doing in our lives. So hope and redemption are connected. We're going to just continue to think about that as we sing two songs together. We're going to start with No Other Name and then Raise a Hallelujah before we hear our next part of our story from Ruth.
We're back to Book of Ruth, chapter 3, verses 8 through to 18. In the middle of the night, something startled the man. He turned, and there was a woman lying at his feet. "Who are you?" he asked. "I'm your servant Ruth," she said. "Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of our family." "The Lord bless you, my daughter," he replied. "This kindness is greater than that which you showed earlier. You have not run after the younger men, whether rich or poor. And now, my daughter, don't be afraid. I will do for you all you ask. All the people of my town know that you are a woman of noble character. Although it is true that I am a guardian redeemer of our family, there is another man who is more closely related than I. Stay here for the night, and in the morning, if he wants to do his duty as your guardian redeemer, good, let him redeem you. But if he is not willing, as surely as the Lord lives, I will do it. Lie here until morning." So she lay at his feet until morning, but got up before anyone could be recognized. And he said, "No one must know that a woman came to the threshing floor." He also said, "Bring me the shawl you are wearing and hold it out." When she did so, he poured into it 6 measures of barley and placed the bundle on her. Then he went back to town. When Ruth came to her mother-in-law, Naomi asked, "How did it go, my daughter?" Then she told her everything Boaz had done for her, and added, "He gave me these 6 measures of barley, saying, 'Don't go back to your mother-in-law empty-handed.'" Then Naomi said, "Wait, my daughter, until you find out what happens, for the man will not rest until the matter is settled today." Here endeth the reading.
Good. So we are in chapter 3 of the Book of Ruth, and we've got some guests here today. Welcome to you. I heard one of your daughters' name is Naomi. Is that right? Good. We in the Book of Ruth and Naomi at the moment, chapter 3. Let's just pray before we go ahead. Dear Father, we thank you for your living word, and we thank you for the blessing of the truths that we sang in the hymns and the songs that we shared together. Thank you for reminding us, Lord, of your truth and you being our kinsman redeemer. Thank you, Lord, for redeeming us. And we pray that you will speak to us through your word, Lord, to every one of us, and that we will hear what you want us to hear. And we pray that we will take your word into our lives, Lord, and that it will become part of who we are and how we live. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. It's interesting for me, the scene of the story is that Ruth was gleaning. She was picking up barley and wheat from the fields of Boaz. And Boaz was interested in her, and he made sure that she was protected and that she was always welcome in his fields and with his people. But now the gleaning season was over. It might have been for 4 months, maybe 2 months to glean barley, and then the wheat comes after the barley, so another 2 months to glean the barley. So they had a constant source of food. But then the gleaning season was over. It was now the season of the threshing, where they used animals and people to walk all over the barley and the wheat and to crush it in a way, in the end to go to the winnowing, which was when you take the chaff and the wheat or the barley and you throw it in the air, and the wind comes and blows away the chaff, and only the useful kernel of the wheat or the barley would stay behind. So they're now into this season, and there was always also in between that, between the harvesting and the actual thrashing, there was always also a drying season for the bunches of wheat or barley to dry before they can be thrashed. So there was probably a time when Ruth was not able to glean, and maybe they were running a bit low on food. And there was also a time where Boaz was not interested in Ruth or showing any interest in Ruth. So Naomi said to Ruth, I think it's time for us to make a plan. We can't just sit around and wait. We need to do something. We need to remind Boaz of you. And also we need to make a plan for your future. Because you're my responsibility. I need to look after you. It may also be that Naomi got some hope from seeing the kindness of Boaz. Boaz, that was a living proof of God's covenant kindness, looking after strangers, protecting them and caring for them. So she might have thought, maybe God is not against me anymore. I think his heart might have changed towards me. He's not angry with me anymore. So I can make a plan. I can hope for a better future, and I can make a plan towards that. And that's also a good question always, I think, to ask. Do you make your own plan and work your plan? Or do you hope and pray and wait? I'm more of a hope and pray and wait guy, but I think it's just because I'm scared of rejection, lazy, keep on postponing important things because I think maybe God will sort it out in a way, then I didn't need to do anything. So there's some of us, I think, that should act more and quicker, but there might also be some of us that might wait more and pray more for God to act on our behalf. But it's a good question. I think we all know that we should, live close to God, try and hear His voice, and I will come back to acting or waiting in a while. Maybe we can pray that, say, God, I've made my own decisions, I've done my own actions, but just take all the wheat and the chaff, your providence, my plans, and let's throw it in the air and let the wind blow the chaff away, and let your providence and your plans, please let them prevail. So Naomi was scared that Ruth might miss the boat, so she made a plan, a careful plan, to introduce Ruth back again into the life of Boaz. And they take action. And if you look back in one of the previous chapters, when they were running low on food, it was Ruth that said, let me go out and glean, let me go out. Because God is looking after us, like the birds and the squirrels. But have you seen how busy a squirrel is? I mean, they're working hard. They're covering ground, climbing trees, looking for the food that God is providing. But they still need to go out and find it. In this time, Naomi is trusting God and trusting Boaz. She's seen this man's character before. She's trusting in him, and she's making a careful plan. And the question is, is Boaz going to follow a principle, or is he going to go for passion? And what Naomi is doing is she's driving the principle of the guardian redeemer, which was a law that God built into his nation as a safety net, a social safety net, as a way of looking after your family, as a way of carrying each other's burdens, as Galatians tell us. If someone in your family is hit by tragedy, it's not their problem, it's all of us' problem. We should carry each other's burden, the Bible says. So she's pushing that principle to the front and saying, let's give Boaz an opportunity to decide whether he wants to represent God's covenant love in repairing our situation and giving us new hope. You can read about the guardian redeemer in Leviticus 25, where God built it into the laws of his people as a way, I said, to show his covenant love, his love for caring for people, his own people, and also ensuring that the property, the land that was given to God through the different tribes of Israel would remain with the right people, would remain in that tribe for the future generations. The guardian redeemer was someone that was called to act on behalf of a relative who was in trouble, danger, or need, to carry someone's burden. So, as you've read and heard, part of the plan was that Ruth would go down to the threshing floor, wait until the party was over, the festivities was dying down, look where Boaz was going to lie down to sleep, and then go to him and then uncover his feet and lie down. And, the question can be, is it seduction or is it submission? And if you go to Ezekiel, I'll see if I can find it. There's a description of where God uses a marriage as a description of his relationship with the nation of Israel. I'm just going to read that one verse with you. He's painting a very, unsettling picture of Jerusalem as an adulterous wife, and then God, the one that redeems her in a way. 16 verse 8. Later I passed by, and when I looked at you and saw that you were old enough for love, I spread the corner of my garment over you and covered your naked body. I gave you my solemn oath and entered into a covenant with you, declares the sovereign Lord, and you became mine. I spread the corner of my garment over you. So this is covenant language. If a woman does this, she's letting the man know, listen, I desire you to be my redeemer, to redeem me and my family. I'm interested in marrying you. I'm here, and I'm asking you to take responsibility. On the question of seduction or submission, maybe it's just valuable to say that sometimes, as they say, a cigar is only a cigar, nothing else. So what happens? What is the outcome of this plan? And the fact that Ruth did everything exactly as Naomi has planned. As Wayne has read, Boaz came to a Ruth awakening. Maybe his feet was cold. Maybe he heard a sound because they also slept next to the grain to protect it from thieves that might come in the night to steal the stuff. So he was awakened and startled because there was a woman close to him. And then Ruth makes her intentions very, very clear. She let him know early on why she is there. She said, the way she talked to him, she uses the same language that he uses in chapter 2, verse 12. She says, I'm your servant, Ruth. Spread the corner of your garment over me, since you are a guardian redeemer of our family. She says, I'm your servant. I'm submitting myself to you. That's my identity in this situation, but your identity is a guardian redeemer. You are representing the covenant God in this relationship. And she's telling him, will you be a channel through which God is looking after me? You've done it already on the fields where I was leaning. But will you be the answer to your own prayers that you prayed for me? Boaz can do all this, but the question is, will he do it all? And at this moment, she's asking him, will you bring me home? I'm just going to take a little sidetrack, telling you a story about coming under the wings of protection. That's an Egyptian goose. And my daughter that lives in South Africa, there was a family of Egyptian goose that made a nest in a tree close to their house. And they followed this Egyptian geese that came and sat on the eggs. And then one day, my son-in-law realized that, he hadn't seen the goose in a few days. And then he looked on the security cameras they have in the garden, and he saw that they had a visitor one night. And there was a fight between the genet and the Egyptian goose, and the genet won. The genet also ate some of the eggs. But then my daughter took the rest of the eggs and put it under a light, and then this happened. They can even swim from day one. So my daughter and my son-in-law took these unborn birds and took them under their wings and give them a chance to live and to have a future with them. Amazing story. So if we go back to Ruth and Naomi and Boaz, what would Boaz do? How will he handle the situation? Will he be a man of his time? You must remember that was in the time of the judges. And we know how the book of Judges ends. Just before Ruth starts, it says that every man did as he pleased. There was no king in the land. There was no Lord. Is Boaz a man of his time? And the biblical record of men in situations like these is not very good. Or will he act with godly wisdom and realizing that he represents a covenant God in the situation? The good news is that Boaz chose principle above passion, showing respect and admiration for Ruth. He's telling her that your kindness that you're showing now is even bigger than the kindness that you showed when you sticked with Naomi. And I think he's meaning that you're choosing Naomi above yourself. Instead of running after young men, rich or poor, you choose a kinsman redeemer. Because if she marries Boaz, he will redeem Naomi and their property and everything, and Naomi will also have a purpose. But then he said, I left that out, I should have said that. The question was, will Boaz accept the offer, or will he get cold feet? Because his feet was uncovered. Anyway, it's a bit late for that. So there was just one problem, Boaz said, and that is that there's someone else in the line ahead of me in the queue, and he's got the first option to be your kinsman or guardian redeemer. But he does not use that as an opportunity to back off or to say, I'm not interested because it's becoming very complicated. He says, no, but we will sort that out. I will give him a chance. We stick with the principle. And then if he doesn't pick up this opportunity or this responsibility, then I will do it. Because even though there's no obligation upon Boaz, the letter of the law set him free. But, the heart of the law was actually telling him to look after these people. And then, as always through this book of Ruth, there's always practical generosity on the side of Boaz. He's not sending her away empty-handed. He realizes that it's been a while since they stopped gleaning. They must be needing food. And he gave her a lot of grain to put in her cloak. When she comes back, the story tells us that Naomi left Bethlehem full and she came back empty. And here we see that Ruth left the house empty, she came back full. And then Naomi said, well done, now we wait. There was a time for action, we did our part, we sowed the seed, we gave Boaz the opportunity, and now we wait. Now we trust, now we hope in God. And for us to wait, it's a tiring thing to wait. It really can sap your energy. It can tire you out like nothing else if you're just waiting. But if we read in the Bible, waiting is for Christians is not supposed to be a passive thing that saps your energy. It's about preparing, about getting yourself ready for when God answers your waiting. In Isaiah 40, it says, those who wait for the Lord. Some of the translations says those who hope in the Lord. Those who wait in the Lord will renew their strength. So instead of waiting that tire you out, if you wait in the Lord and on the Lord, it will renew your strength. They will soar on the wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not be faint. The Bible, the Hebrew actually says that the renew your strength is actually taking off your own strength and putting on God's strength. So waiting for a Christian is a time of preparation. You remember the story of the 10 virgins, and they were waiting, and 5 of them were prepared. They were ready, but 5 of them were not ready. The thing is, when it becomes time to act, to soar and run and walk, the way that you waited will be visible in the way that you walk. So if you wait well, if you prepare well when you are waiting, it will be visible in the way that you act when you need to act. If you wait on God, it will give you wings. You will come out of His wings with your own wings. I was wondering, what was we talking about Christ as our Redeemer, and in the Bible, God also connects Himself in the Old Testament and calls Himself our Redeemer. If you go to Psalm 130, I'm not going to read it now. God says, I am your Redeemer in the Old Testament to the nation of Israel. I was wondering, what is the effect of the fact that Christ is our Redeemer, that He adopted us like Naomi adopted Ruth into her family. She was a Moabite. She came into the family of Israel. God adopted us into His family. Jesus paid the price, because redeem or redemption means that you are bought back. Something that was lost, there was a price paid for it, and it was brought back. What does it mean for us practically in our lives? And I thought, well, I should go back to the text and back to Ruth. But now that is chapter 4. So I'm not going to go there. We've got Charles coming next week to guide us through chapter 4. And every time I saw this image, I thought of this Sunday school teacher that was teaching a class of children, from the Bible. And the book that they were reading from, it was a children's Bible, so there was an image, a picture of Christ. And she said to the class, you must remember, we don't know what Jesus looked like. There was no photographs in that time. So, every picture that you see of him, or like this picture, remember that's not a picture of the real Jesus. So one boy put up his hand and she said, yes. And he said, I understand that, miss, but you have to confess that, it looks an awful lot like him. Anyway, so we were adopted into his family and taken under his wings through Jesus Christ. We were redeemed by God through Jesus. He paid the price. We became part of his family. It also means that the inheritance was protected for us. We were looking at 1 Peter a while ago, and there's a lot of talk there about the inheritance that's kept safe for us with God. Last week, it was my mother's birthday, and she died about, I think, 5 years ago. And on her birthday, I thought of her, and she had a tough time in the end. She had dementia, and she actually died from that. So it's difficult to remember her past her illness, to remember what was she like before she became ill. And then I thought, what a joy of the inheritance that we have, that I will definitely see my mother one day again. And she will have a glorious body that God gave her. And there will be no separation then. We will be together forever. And I think that's part of the inheritance that Christ the Redeemer brought back for us, as children of Christ. I'm just going to show one more picture, and then we can go over to the communion. So we are under the wings of God. He's taking care of us. We are safe there. He's with us. He redeemed us for everlasting life. I'm going to read 2 verses from Romans 3. Romans 3, verse 24. All have sinned and fall short of the glory of God, and all are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus. God presented Christ as a sacrifice of atonement through the shedding of his blood to be received by faith. And all are justified freely by his grace through the redemption that came by Christ Jesus. So if we take the bread and the wine, it is to confirm this to every one of us, to strengthen our faith, to remind us that as sure as we eat the bread, so sure can we be that Christ did this for us, that we were redeemed by him, by his sacrifice, by what he paid for us. And as surely as you drink the wine, his blood was shed for our redemption. So if you take the wine and the bread now, just remember this. And also this is to remind us that we are the body of Christ. Ruth and Naomi became part of a new family, and that you will hear next week. But that's part of, the function of the church, in a way, as a redeemer of people, bringing the lonely into a family. So remember that as well when you're having the bread and the wine, that God is binding us together as his family.